Okay. Hi, my name is Deap Ubhi. I am one of two co-founders of Burp. I'm not with them any longer, but we'll get there. I'll tell you the story about why I'm no longer there. I'll walk through just my general story. I think Ashish asked me to focus on particularly rejections and failures. And so Burp was a poster child for rejection. So you'll hear a lot about rejection, I think, today from us. Sharad, we were one of the people that didn't pay our bills on time, so I apologize for that. No, you didn't. So the impetus for Burp, why did I start Burp? I mean, essentially around the time that Burp was started, I think it was August of 2006, Yelp was doing fairly well, at least from a usage standpoint, community building standpoint in the Bay Area where I was born and raised. So I think heavily influenced by Yelp's surge in the Bay Area, especially in Northern California. They were doing really, really well in New York, in a lot of the large metropolitan cities in the United States. And I think a year prior to starting Burp, I had come to Bombay with some friends just to hang out, and had a pretty difficult time just finding things to do, you know, bottom line, like didn't know where to go, didn't know what was good, what wasn't good. We depended a lot on hotel concierges, and we ended up hanging out with a couple of local friends who had much better recommendations to give us than the hotel concierges. And so my co-founder, Anand Jain, and I, who were on that trip together, we came back to the US and we said that, you know, there's some merit in looking at taking the Yelp concept to India. So pure concept arbitrage type of business. There wasn't any sort of secret sauce behind the idea. It had been done before many times over and had been done very, very well, but it hadn't been done in India yet. So we ended up raising about 100,000 US dollars, about 50 lakhs. From friends and families, not much at all, but for a consumer-facing technology startup where the barriers are pretty low to entry from a technology standpoint, product development standpoint, it was all we needed. We moved to India from the US in June of 2006. It took up a really dingy flat in Andheri West in Lokhandwala, if you guys are familiar with Bombay, one bedroom, converted the hall into an office. And for the startups out there that think it's hard to hire talent today, I mean, think about having people coming interviewing in this one-bedroom flat in Andheri. It was very, very hard for us to hire our first developer, but we eventually did. And you know, I think just by nature of being one of the, being one of the first internet startups in that wave in 2006 that was kind of taking hold in India, there was a lot of sort of positive press and blogs and forums and communities. So we were able to, I think, evangelize the platform pretty effectively and purely organically. We obviously, with 50 lakhs in the bank, there's not much you can spend on traditional user acquisition, not much you can spend on PR, not much you can spend on marketing. Most of that money went directly into product development in the form of and developers' salaries. So you know, that 50 lakhs lasted us 19 months. We were able to stretch it really, really far. I was not making a salary for that period of time. I think Anand was taking a very small stipend for himself because he had a family that he had to support. I was single at the time, so I didn't have any, I wasn't married. I didn't have any sort of responsibilities per se, any familial responsibilities. So most of that money went to pay our development team, which grew to about, I think, 12 people. And there came a time, there was an inflection point in our journey where we were very low on cash, didn't have money to pay developer salaries probably for the next month or a month after that, and we had to figure something out. Now, during this whole period, this 19-month period, I probably pitched most of the VCs in India, and we were rejected by every single one for various reasons. And I think back then I was also like, I lacked maturity at that, you know, that, I guess, tender age of 26, you know. I was brash and I was young and I was egotistical and I didn't take rejection well. And so a lot of times there were cases where these meetings not only didn't go well, but they would become very, very, be a lot of friction in the meeting, a lot of words being exchanged. And over the course of the years, I've become much more mature and I know that there were good reasons that everyone rejected us. I think that if I were in their shoes, that local search at that stage in India, there was huge questions around monetization. How are these companies going to make money? Yeah, sure, they're going to get a lot of awesome reviews. They're going to take great pictures. They're going to have all this great content. But at the end of the day, how does this company flip into a business? And I think that that was something that at least I lacked maturity about. I didn't necessarily think that that was as key as it should have been at that point in time. So, you know, Sequoia, gosh, I don't think Excel was in, but all the sort of global VCs that had India presences. So the Sequoia was there, which was the company that funded ClearTrip early on. Which one? KPCB was, yeah, we got rejected by KPCB. Avnish Bajaj rejected us at Matrix, but he's a good friend, so I take it personally. We got rejected by Sherpalo, which is the early stage Ram Ram's fund that's based here in Bombay. Rejected by them. Rejected by Battery. Rejected by Indian Angel Network. Rejected pretty much across the board. I know most of these guys really, really well now, and I have fairly good relationships with all of them. Many of them I can call my friends. So I'm pretty fortunate to be in a position that these guys are in my social circle now. But at that point in time, I had a lot of contempt for a lot of these people, again, because I think I lacked a little maturity. Having that said, I mean, there was this really interesting period in the business where we got an unsolicited phone call from a South African dude named Johan Decker, who was living in Gurgaon for some time. But he called because he was going to be greenfielding a sort of destination portal in India, which eventually became Ibibo, based in Gurgaon. And they were interested in acquiring Burp. And so here we are, and we're at that point in time, probably 15 people deep as a team, and we get our first acquisition offer. And it was exciting because we had our backs up against the wall, had very little money left in the bank, really had given up hope from the venture capital community. And we get an unsolicited acquisition offer from a very, very large media conglomerate that's based in South Africa. So we did the rounds with MIH. We went up to Gurgaon with most of the core team. We met some of their leadership. At that point in time, they had hired Ashish Kashyap to be their CEO, who I think was working at Google before that in their sales team. We met him, met their entire their leadership team on the product side. Their idea was to basically have Burp become the local search component of Ibibo.com. I thought that was kind of stupid, but we wanted to hear what the number was. That was the most important thing. If the number made sense, then I think at that point in time we were willing to sell our souls to the devil, which is what Ibibo is. So we did the rounds with them, and the number, they told us the number. And we flew back to Bombay and huddled together as a team and talked about it. Coincidentally, around this time, one of the lawyers that was working at Ibibo, that was doing the due diligence for them on our deal, was poached by Network 18, which is a media conglomerate. You guys know Network 18. And because they were able to poach the lawyer that was doing all the due diligence on our deal, Network 18 became, I think, fully apprised of everything that was going on, the economics behind the deal. They had all the details they needed from her. And I think one of my buddies, Siddharth Rao, who runs WebChutney, a digital agency you guys know, they mostly popular for doing those viral cartoonish videos, but they do other stuff too. They had just taken in a round from Capital 18, which is Network 18's venture capital arm. And Siddharth told me, he's like, look, I want you to meet this guy, really, really great. He wants to meet you. And before you say anything to the Ibibo folks, you just meet him once. And I said, okay, sure, I'll meet him. And went to Taj Lands End in Bandra. I ended up meeting Harish Chawla, who's a good friend of Sharad's. He was the CEO of the entire Network 18 group. And literally over beers, I think, and over 45 minutes, he derailed the Ibibo acquisition, put an offer on the table that was better than Ibibo's. And I think by the end of that session, we had agreed to be acquired is a generous term, I think absorbed into the Network 18 family. And so I think part of the reason why it felt so good, we hadn't made our minds up by then, but I knew at that point in time that it was probably the best thing that was coming to us given the stage that we were at, because Harish was a great guy. I don't know if any of you have any experience working with or knowing who he is or listening to his interviews, but he's actually a really, really great person, entrepreneur who I respect a lot because he built what he built from the ground up and has done a phenomenal job. So I really wanted to work with him because I thought that there was a lot I could learn from him. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, Harish and I and our core team, we got a lot closer. There were people on our core team at that point in time that they weren't cool with the acquisition. They're like, we don't want to do this. We want to keep trying with the VC community. We think that we can stay independent. And at that point in time, I came at crossroads with two particular people on my team that were pretty core people on our team that were just not okay with being acquired by Network 18. And that was a painful time in our existence because we had, I think, a very tenuous 2-week period within which this acquisition was happening. These guys that were core folks on our team were just getting to be very difficult to work with because they didn't agree with the premise of the acquisition. That was really tough. That gave me a lot of sleepless nights because I knew that at some point in time we would have to part ways with those guys. And it's not just the emotional thing about, parting ways with like your friends, people you worked with, but then you have to worry about, well, what are they going to expect when they leave? Are they going to want to, what was their vesting schedule and all this stuff, about just logistically, how is this going to work? And is this going to pose any kind of a legal threat for us in the future? Thankfully, that never happened, but it's something you think about when you're in that particular phase. So we signed on the dotted line. I think the acquisition was consummated in March of 2009. I mean, we had begun discussing the deal well before that, but I think that it was actually on paper and ink in March of 2009. Well before that, we had started working at Network 18's offices in Lower Parel in Bombay, and then eventually we moved to a bigger facility nearby. But the deal was actually inked in March of 2009. At that point in time, I became EVP of all their internet products, especially under the Infomedia 18 banner. But I did a lot of work in the Web 18 side too, a lot of the strategic partnerships that they had with some globals. We had done some deals with Nokia, we had done some deals with...
even have a revenue model to begin with. So as I see, there is a new mindset of VCs who are actually looking into startups like that in India. Can you tell me a little more, tell us a little more about your experience between that mindset, what do you see it in the Valley? Is it easier to raise money in the US for companies like that versus companies in India?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing to understand about the US is there's two things. One, I just stress this again. I mean, there's a very, very real sort of inner circle in the Valley. And I don't say that to joke around. I mean, it's real. You can feel it when you're there. If you don't make any kind of headway to try to penetrate that inner circle, or if you're not 1 to 2 degrees removed from that inner circle, it becomes increasingly challenging to raise funding because there, again, there's a community that just knows each other. They've known each other for a while. They've done deals together. They've shared deals with each other. They've been in startups together. They've been competing against each other in startups. So there's that challenge to get over, but let's assume that you can get over that challenge at some point in time. I mean, the thing to understand about the US is that because the US is what it is and because the Valley is what it is, it's hyper competitive. I mean, if you're not going to be the only one with your idea, so don't resolve yourself to that. I mean, if you think that there's 2 other people, 3 other people that are thinking about it. So in the US, I feel like there's almost a magnifying glass on hyper competitiveness. I mean, there's just so much competition on the product side. Now, having that said, there's a lot stronger, healthier angel funding ecosystem in the United States than I think exists here in India. So if you needed to raise a couple of $100,000 to do a proof of concept for your product, just to get it out the door, to get it built, to get it feature correct, to get it pretty much bug free, and to get maybe some 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people evangelizing the product. I think that if you've got a fairly differentiated product in the market, you're solving a real problem, then you can elucidate that problem to the investor. Your chances of raising angel funding might be better in the United States, provided that you know the people to reach out to. I think part of the thing that that is difficult, I think, here in India is that I think there's a lack of a structured sort of like angel funding network. I mean, there's a couple of groups, IAN, and then there's the guys in Delhi. But in terms of like just having a bunch of rich guys that have done it before that are like very, 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 I think, willing to take on that risk. Because at that early stage, the guy has to be willing to throw that money away and just not ever see it again, right? I mean, if I'm writing you a $200,000 check today, I have to be comfortable like just saying, oh, I can take that $200,000, the stage that you're at, and how comfortable are you saying that I'm actually building a product that is differentiated in the market, solving a real pain point globally for people that are going to use it. My sense is that if there's a way for you to get into some of the angels that are funding a lot of stuff in the United States, probably easier for you to raise sort of a sub $1 million round there. If it's something that's more mature and you've got traction and you've got usage and you've got some statistics and some data under your belt to show. Again, I haven't been here for a while, so I don't know how. My friend's company just got funded, a product company based in Bombay that I advise informally, a pure product company. And they were able to raise some money through IAN. A couple of crores though, I mean, same thing, right? I mean, it depends on your size. And they're more focused on sort of providing enterprise solutions for customer engagement. So like a get satisfaction type of company. Yeah, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I mean, Angel Network, super strong in the United States, very, very active, doing a lot of deals, but again, in that $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 range. I don't know if those kind of deals are being done in India. I just don't know. I can't say. I just haven't been here for a while, but my gut tells me that they're not, or that they're very far and few between. Whereas in the US, like first money in is always angel, pretty much, for the most part. If you look at the last 10, 15, 20 big deals that are being done in the US, and all the companies that are going public that you guys have heard of, Zynga, Pandora, LinkedIn, they all had angel money early on, all of them. They didn't start with big A rounds, so.
Stage where you were being rejected by multiple venture capitalists as well as funders, to a stage where you actually got acquisition offers. What was the transition? I mean, when you were getting rejected one after the other, there must be something going on in your mind that, is there something which we are doing wrong?
Yeah,
then you got acquired. So those acquisition offers were based on what? And which the VCs were not able to see.
Yeah, so I think that the honest answer to that is that I thank my stars that I lacked maturity at that time because I wasn't processing those rejections the way a normal person should. Which is like, is there something that I should do about my business where, like what I did at Little Lux and with Hopscotch, where something's not adding up? And can I make some changes quickly to adapt to what the local market is telling me? I was young and stupid and brash, and so I was so emotionally invested in Burp as the concept. I was like, this is the business I'm going to build. I'm going to live and die by it. I don't give a shit what anyone's telling me. That's not necessarily the smartest thing to do. I mean, pick and choose who you want to take your advice from, but at some point in time, if the market is telling you something about your business that goes against the core thesis of why you're doing it, I mean, at least listen to that, So over the course of us getting rejected, we were just too young, lacked maturity, and we were very emotionally invested in the concept. We were just like, this is it. This is the end-all, be-all for us. So again, because I think, weird combination of not having maturity and being too overly, invested emotionally in the company, we didn't process rejections and we didn't think about, well, how do we sort of pivot this business into something that makes more sense for this market? Now, what were we what was the value in our company when we were acquired? To be very honest with you, I think it was just our team. I think that we had built probably one of the most enviable product teams in the country at that stage. I mean, there's tons of great ones today in India that I see, but at that point in time, 2006, 2007, 2008, there's a lot of really shitty, customer-facing platforms that exist in the United States. No focus on usability, no focus on, UI, just a lack of sort of like understanding of information architecture and those kind of things that just make the experience of using a customer-facing platform more pleasant and more logical, we had a lot of that in-house. We had a phenomenal engineering team. We had an amazing design team. And if I had to come back to India today, like I'm lucky enough to say that I could probably pick and choose all my guys back again, and we could have pretty much our same core team back together for the most part. I mean, those guys would be willing to drop whatever it is because we just had an amazing experience those first 18 months. So why did we get acquired? I don't think it was an acquisition that said, oh, this company's worth this much because they've done some awesome job curating content. They've got awesome. It was a team. They're like, these guys have probably the best, consumer-facing internet team in the country. There's going to be something that we can get them to do that's going to add value to our company. Going farther than that, I mean, Infomedia 18, I think there were some synergies there because they were this old and aging Yellow Pages company, and we were like this young kind of hip local search company. So there might have been some ideas where people were like, oh, go take this. They were feeling some pressure from Just Dial at that stage also, so they needed a team that could help them kind of build a competitive platform, which we did. But at the end of the day, I think it was more of like what they call an acqui-hire in the Valley. It was like, these are some cool guys, and they know what they're doing, so let's get them on board. Yeah.
I have a question around the strategy for user-generated content, because I tried to run my own site for aggregating reviews and stuff. And what the biggest problem I faced was generating the quantity, I mean getting any content at all, and B, fighting spam, fighting users trying to defame their competitors.
Right.
And the last one being sponsored users trying to influence the reviews and not allowing any negative comments. How do you manage that?
We ran into a lot of the same problems. So allow that community to police their own community. They have to be able to say, hey, this review sounds suspicious. This review is junky. This review is not informative. So pretty early on, we enabled a lot of community policing features. So it allowed our small community that was writing great reviews and getting utility out of other people's great reviews by reading them to be sort of our own community managers. They would manage the community for us. They would police our platform for us. The second thing that we did, I think that after we got acquired, we had sort of almost unlimited financial resources coming from the parent company for the most part. So we were able to scale up a team of about 10 people that we kind of called like our data engineers. And all they really did was sort of go through, physically, like go through most of the reviews that were being written in a lot of the cities that we were more popular in, which are Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, and would physically weed out reviews that seemed suspicious. But for the most part, we wouldn't come to know of anything that was going wrong unless someone in the community flagged something for us. Our flagging feature was used tremendously at Burp. I mean, people would flag reviews all the time, and it doesn't take a genius to read a review and be like, this guy's like, just promoting his own business, or this guy's trying to screw his competitor by saying something nasty about his competitor. For the most part, you can get a good sense of that. But all of it pretty much started with the community. And to this day, from the best of my knowledge, I'm still pretty close friends with most of the people that are running the Burp team, that the community tends to be very, very strong at Burp, very protective about their quality of the reviews. I mean, not to the extent that like Wikipedia is the perfect example of that. People are fanatic on Wikipedia. So I don't think that we have sort of that fanatical type of user base, but we do have a user base that really cares about the quality of content. I mean, they know that the platform's utility is only as good as the content. So Burp is going to not be useful for them if they don't help us to some degree. So we were really good at evangelizing in the very beginning. We didn't spend much money on marketing, but we would reach out to all the blogs, the forums. Very human-intensive effort, but we put in the time early on. Put in a lot of time to reach out to whatever existing communities there were in India online. Hey, do you know about Burp? You want to write on Burp? Do you have something to share on Burp? And we just did that obsessively.